Why exactly do you want to join Goldman Sachs? Because they know for sure that you've come here. Hi guys, and welcome to MentorMe's YouTube channel, and I'm again back with some interview questions related to investment banking. Coming back to this video, we are basically talking about Goldman Sachs interview questions. And when we are talking about Goldman Sachs have a wide variety of jobs. But generally speaking, when we're talking about freshers, we're basically talking about jobs which are related to more towards middle office functions and back office functions. And these are the top 5 questions which you have to make sure that you prepare well in advance and in a detailed manner. Questions which you have to make sure that you prepare. They do not really expect you to know everything, every minute detail about the process, but it would be a plus if you actually can explain in a layman term what you understand about these 5 basic questions. Number 1 question is related to walk me through an entire trade life cycle of an OTC. So this is how you ideally should be answering this question. First of all, you need to go towards how this entire trade process would get executed. Sales team is the first person who would actually come across and start with putting the order and telling you that this is the security that actually you want to buy. The second step is the confirmation of the draft or the agreement, which is also done using ISDA. Hi guys, so I'm interrupting this video to just make you aware of what MentorMe Careers does. So MentorMe Careers is a platform, an edtech firm, which actually provides various skill-based courses like financial modeling, investment banking, operation, ABLE, KYC, and we also train candidates for CFA level 1. So if you are one of those who are looking for a change, who is looking for skill-based courses, but also wants to get placed in a firm, then you can visit our website at mentormecareers.com and you can check out our courses and you can download our placement reports. We are known for providing placements. So back to the video again. The second part is matching. So now once the trade has been executed, you got to match with what has been told you to execute versus what exactly you've matched. So it can happen in many cases that, there might be scripts or stocks which have different symbols, similar symbols or similar terminologies, which might lead for a person to actually execute a trade in some other script than what was intended. And believe it or not, this actually happens a lot. A company who is executing a trade needs to obviously have the amount of money with them to buy the stock, and also need to ensure that the other party which is actually executing or is selling you the security has that security in the first place. Let's say we execute the trade and the counterparty does not really have the security, then there would be a mismatch and there's a chances that the trade might fail. And trade fail in India might not be a very big case, but in case of US and European regulations, trade fails tend to attract a lot of penalties, right? So that's the part of matching. Then is the settlement. Now you might have understood or you might have come across this term of settlement. What it basically means is that from the day of you starting the trade, right, you executing and you putting up the trade, towards you actually getting the trade, there's some time limit, because all of these processes will actually be working while you've actually put the trade. Now this used to be T+3 worldwide, but now most of the organizations in US and most of the trading systems in US are doing it on T+1. That means if I put a trade on Thursday, then the security needs to come into my account on Friday, which basically means that a lot of work related to investment banking process increased further, because there are chances that if the time to settle has reduced, it also means that probably a lot of errors can happen. Post the execution and the settlement is the reconciliation, which is basically trying to again going and doing a cross check whether things actually happened the way it should have happened, right? So making sure that the right security was bought, the security was transferred, the quantity matched, if there was any discrepancy that was resolved, there was no trade failure. All of this is a part of reconciliation, right? Second question could be related to a failed trade. What do you do if in case there is a failed trade? Now you need to understand that during a failed trade, why would a failed trade happen? So this should actually take you to that process where you are thinking that, okay, if a trade has actually failed, it has happened between two parties. So the first initiation is to understand the root cause on why it actually did not pass through as planned. So it might be because of collateral, it might be because of lack of funds, it might be because of timing differences. Whatever the reason is, first objective of an analyst out here is to figure out the root cause. Second is to implement safety fixes. Now, safety fixes basically means that you do a temporary adjustment to make sure that the trade actually gets still resolved, but this has to happen through approval from your management or your team lead. And post all of these issues have been solved, then the next step would be to do a post-mortem analysis, is to understanding that how this process actually got invalidated, and probably in the next process, whenever we will be executing a trade, the trade actually works according to as planned. Third question is actually a very basic question, and probably you want to make sure that you give the best possible yet a very short and a brief answer. If they ask you what is the difference between front office, middle office and back office, right? Investment banks generally have three basic flows. One is front office, which is generally related to revenue, getting new clients, sales, research. All of these activities are related to front office. Middle office functions are more related towards risk management, and back office is related to settlement, trade matching, trade execution. All of these activities which fall under the three various offices of investment banks, which you should know practically, and also make sure that you actually go and see some of the job descriptions where this is evident, so that you can explain also what are the various functions, what are the day-to-day responsibilities of these areas where people actually work. Fourth question is related to, again, a very basic fundamental question, and it is related to understanding of derivatives. Now, the question might be, explain what is derivatives in simple terms. Now, at this moment, there is a lot of chance that candidates will tend to get into very detailed descriptions of forwards and futures, but that's not exactly what the interviewer wants to understand. And it might be also better for you to not give those kind of answers, because it actually looks as if you are, outsmarting, or you are trying to showcase that you have too much knowledge. You need to make sure that you are able to explain what is derivatives. And a very simple way of explaining what derivatives is, let's say, for example, you want to buy gold. And let's say if you want to buy gold in the month of December, when you actually end up buying the gold asset at 30,000 per 10 grams, you would actually make up for the losses if in case the price increase. So what I can do is I can buy a derivative contract of gold. And if, let's say, in the month of December, if the price actually goes up to 60,000, you would gain 30,000 and your losses would be set off. But on the other hand, if the price is reduced, let's say it goes to about 10,000, then you will make a loss. But the losses which you make out here will be set off from the gains that you make by actually buying the security, right? And that's how you would be able to hedge the security. That is one kind of derivative that we're talking about, is forwards and futures. Now, the difference between forwards and futures, in case of futures, you can just go to the exchange and actually execute the same contract. Whereas if you're doing it on a customized basis, you got to go to an OTC exchange and, customize this contract and make sure that the trade executes. The other kind of derivatives there are many, in which you actually do not have to take the entire exposure of the product, but you can buy, put and call options, right? So that's how, in a nutshell, you can explain what derivatives actually mean. This question is really related to behavioral, and this is where sometimes a lot of candidates tend to fail, is when they ask you, why exactly do you want to join Goldman Sachs? Because they know for sure that you've come here because of the brand. And if they find out that only the reason is only to get into the brand, then probably that might not be a very pleasing answer to the interviewer, because you have to understand the interviewer is not the owner of Goldman Sachs. He's also an employee of Goldman Sachs, and he wants to make sure that it is as difficult as it was for him. So the answer is more towards the fact that you want to work with the best people, with the best company, and want to add value to the best investment banking firm. Specifically, if the question is related to why do you really want to do investment banking operations, so you have to make sure that you understand, put more focus towards the fact that I am a process-oriented guy. Okay, and I like to improve processes. I like to, build automations in processes, and that's where I feel my interest is, and hence I'm applying for investment banking operations. The reason why this question is asked is because many times people do not know what is investment banking and what is investment banking operations, because investment banking operations is not research, it is not sell side going and pitching to the client, it is not mergers and acquisition, it is more towards processes. So the first question And doubt is when a candidate is good, with a good background, with a good communication. The doubt firstly comes as to fact that whether he actually wants to join operations, or it's just a stopgap arrangement that you're doing to just get the brand and forward, right? So these are the top 5 questions which you should prepare, and there are plenty of other questions also which you can prepare. But in my experience and with the candidates that we have sent for interview for Goldman Sachs, what we've realized is the questions are more towards the basics, and some questions related to behaviors, which people tend to oversee because they feel that it's all about technical. But believe it or not, the students and the candidates who actually get rejected, most of the time, the reason why they're getting rejected is because of the lack of attitude, awareness, and interest, right? It's not always technical. That's where most of you are getting it wrong.